Shall we make a start? The first thing we'll do is salute the shrine. I'll remember the protocol. Chanting means masks. Reciting means voluntary masks. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Dhammaya. Namo Dhammaya. Namo Sanghaya. Namo Sanghaya. Namo Namah. Namo Good evening, everyone. I hope you enjoyed your day. Most of the hosting for this evening's session is going to be done by Vimalamati here, who one of the relatively unsung heroes of our order convening work. It's been such a delight working with Vimalamati. For most of the time I've been order convener, actually. Thank you for everything you do. Thank you for all the help you've given me. In fact, Ari-Jo and I both love working with you. So I'm going to hand over to Vimalamati in a minute, but I'm just going to do that little bit of hosting for the new order members. Yeah, so the first bit this evening will just be, now that's anyone who's been ordained in the last year, not calendar year, so from the last sort of, we did an online convention, which those of you who are newly ordained may not know. So from August, basically August of last year, if you've been ordained in that 12-month period, we have a beautiful protocol in the order, which is you get to just say hello to us and we get to kind of say hello to you and witness you, if you like. So I don't actually know exactly how many of you there are, but what I'd like you to do in just a moment is just to kind of line up down the side here, come up to where I'm standing right here and just go, hello, my name is, you know, and tell us the short version of the meaning of your name. Maybe when notice that little word short there. Not like how your preceptor did it at the ordination. Tell us, you know, like when and where you got ordained, because there's been quite a few locations in the last year. I was talking to someone at dinner who got ordained on Zoom. Never heard of that before. And so where you're from, where you got ordained, your name and the short meaning of your name. So we'll just do this little section first, and then I'll hand over to Vimalamati for the rest of the session. Okay, so if you can just come up and make your way over and make a little line here, and then maybe when you're all assembled, then whoever's at the front will just come up and do that. Whew. Look at those robes.
So good evening, everybody. I can't remember exactly what we're supposed to say, but I'm based in Sheffield, so I'm from the Sheffield Sangha, and I was ordained at Vajrasana, and then at the very last minute, we also went off to Gokiloka. So it was all touch and go. And my given name, I'm very proud to say, is Kashanti Chara. He whose practice is patience.
Hello, my name is Vilasamuni, which means the sage who shines forth. I was in Kshanti Chara's batch, so we were ordained at Vajrasana and then went to Gokiloka shortly afterwards. And I am most of the time based in Oxford.
Hello, brothers and sisters. My name is Varabandhu, which means he who is an excellent friend. I was also in that batch, so I was ordained in Vajrasana. What else? I'm from Dublin. And my private preceptor was Paramabandhu, my public preceptor was Artapriya. Thank you.
Gosh, I've had this sudden fear that I'm going to forget my own name. So, so my name is Arya Nisha, and it means she whose dream is of the noble ones. I had my private ordination at Taraloka, so I was the only in-person retreatant on an online retreat. It was just me and the team members there, and then my public ordination was here on May the 4th, which feels like a very auspicious day to be ordained. And yeah, I'm based at the Brixton Buddhist Centre. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Kema Bandhu, which means friend of the state of peace. And I was also ordained at Vajrasana, and then we went to Gokiloka in May. A few people insisted that I tell you all that I'm actually from Australia, but I live here at Astana and have done so for 4 years. So, hello.
Hello, I'm from Herefordshire and I was ordained here 6 weeks ago or so. And my name is Daya Darshini, she who has vision and compassion. Hello.
Hello. My name is Surya Shraddha. Can't say it yet. She whose faith is like the sun, and I was ordained in May at Taraloka.
Hello. I was ordained at Padmaloka. I live in Dover, which is close to Deal. My name is Karunadara, which means he who is a bearer of compassion.
I am Dana Ketu, which is the beacon of generosity. I'm also from the Deal Sangha in Kent, although I now live in Devon at the moment. And I was ordained in Vajrasana and then Gokiloka with the batch from there. Thank you for the welcome.
Hello, I'm Maitri Jyoti, so she who has or is the light of love. I was ordained last September here, one of the first batch to get ordained around COVID. And I'm from Wales, but part of the Bristol Sangha. And my private preceptor is Sachalila and Shantavadri Public.
Hello, I'm Arya Vasin, meaning he who dwells with the noble ones. I am Albanian, probably I am the first Albanian order member. And I live in London. I'm at the LBC. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Paranita, and it means guided by the beyond. I was ordained here 6 weeks ago with 2 weeks' notice, and I'm from Sheffield.
Hi, my name is Suvarna Shri. It means golden light. Dasani was my private preceptor. We had the private ordination in Aberdeenshire and my public ordination by Parami at Danakosha. And it was the first Zoom hybrid, which I don't know if it's only me that calls it Zoom hybrid, but it was spring one from Taraloka on Zoom.
Hello everybody, my name is Akasha Siddhi, and that means he whose accomplishment is the unbounded nature of the awakened mind. It's an aspiration. I'm from Hitchin, I'm part of the Cambridge Sangha, and I was also ordained at Vajrasana and Gukyoka.
Hello, sisters and brothers. My name is Mahaprasara, which means he who makes great progress or he who makes a great journey. I'm from Sheffield and I was ordained at Vajrasana and Gukyoka.
Hello. My name is Manjunawa, which means gentle, beautiful, charming man. I like my preceptor. I live in Cambridge and I was part of the Vajrasana Gukyoka gang.
Hello, I'm Padmanandi, which means one who delights in the qualities of the lotus. And I was ordained last month at Tiratnaloka. I think our public ordination was a month today, actually. So I'm a month old. And I live in London and I'm based at the LBC.
Hello, my name is Kirana Shri, which means she who has the radiance of the moonbeam of Bodhicitta. And I was ordained also at Tiratnaloka a month ago. And I'm from London.
Hello, brothers and sisters and daughters. So I am Kamaladaya, which means she who has or is the compassionate of the red lotus. I was ordained by Samantha Badri and Subhadramati at the end of May in Taraloka, both of those occasions.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Sarah Vassiter, she whose faith is perfumed, forgotten already, I was ordained spring 2, end of May at Taraloka. My private preceptor was Atulimati, public preceptor was Bratamati.
Hello, my name is Nagarani. I was ordained in September last year here at Adhisthana. My name means Queen of the Nagas, and my private preceptor is Shubha, and my public preceptor Parami.
Hello, I'm another one from the Vajrasana batch, and I'm based at the LBC, and my name is Surya Naga, which is Naga of the Sun.
Hello, my name is Tejasara, she whose heart is on fire with the 3 jewels. And I come from Bristol, and my private preceptor was Vandana Jyoti and public Parami.
Hi, I was ordained in May this year after a Zoom retreat, publicly at the LBC and privately in a little cottage called Plum Cottage, somewhere in the Kent countryside. My name is Vidya Nadi, she who is a river of wisdom.
Good evening. My name is Singer Shraddha, which is she who has a light-like faith. And I was the only other person to be privately ordained in Plum Cottage. And from a retreat that was on Zoom from Taraloka. And I was publicly ordained at the LBC. And my Sangha's in Croydon.
Wow, it's really nice to see all of you. It's a different view from when you're back there in the crowds. Wow, lovely to see you. So my name is Guhya Saki. So like Guhya Loka, but Guhya Saki, meaning she who has the mystery as a friend. And I had my public ordination at Tiratna Loka 1 month from today.
Hello, my name is Vijaya Chitta, one whose heart-mind is victorious. I was ordained here, actually privately in Bante's shrine room at Ergon House and publicly in the courtyard here at Adhisthana in September. My private preceptor was Jyotismati and my public preceptor was Shantavadri.
Wow. Hello, I'm Buddha Samagama. It's he who has a longing to be with Buddhas. And for that, I have Mahashraddha, my preceptor, to thank for that magnificent name. It was Padmaloka last year, height of the pandemic, rainy. No flags, no quiche, no nothing, just pure Dharma. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kiranadi. It means she whose wisdom shines like a moonbeam, which my public preceptor Shantavadri was there for, and my private preceptor is Vajrasara.
Hello, can you see me over here? I'm the last one, so you might remember my name. My name's Moksha Sari, and that means she who is flowing towards freedom, which I love. And thank you, Vijayamala, for that beautiful name, and thank you, Shantavadri, for welcoming me into this order. And I was ordained here on the Spring 1 retreat. I had my private ordination here and my public ordination here, and it was wonderful. I'm from Manchester.
Well, it appears that there's nothing like listening to a whole shower of beautiful names to temporarily alleviate stage fright. But now it's back with vengeance. We're moving on to the portion of the evening from what with the Ergun Sangharakshita Trust. And I have, and I do genuinely say this from deepest part of my heart, very happy to be introducing Subhuti, because many of you who know me know how fond I am of Subhuti. He is very important to me. So, but it's going to be a brief introduction, yes, it is about the Ergun Sangharakshita Trust. And yesterday, when we had the introduction, we wanted to just fill in the gaps of the fact that we didn't name all the trustees of the trust. So I think it's good that people know who those people are and how much they're doing. So the trust is Subhuti, Paramartha, Amalabhadra, and Mahamati. And we'll be seeing the three people that you see on your programme over the weekend. Yes, the other thing I'm taking as an advantage is the fact that everybody knows Subhuti one way or another, through his activities, his talks, or his writing. So that is another reason I don't have to say too much. But I do want to say a little bit personally. I think one of the things, I was looking for the right word for this, but I think I've always been in awe of is Subhuti's immense energy. And lots of people have energy, but for me, Subhuti's energy is so much bounded with his knowledge and his faith in the efficacy of the Dharma, that it transforms from energy to being virya. So I think it's virya that's behind so much of what he does. And that virya, I know, is recognized by many. And I'm just going to mention another part of Subhuti's mandala of work and activities, because not only is he a trustee, he's also one of the literary executors appointed by Bhante for all Bhante's works. So they work on behalf of the Ergun Sangharakshita Trust, and they are Subhuti, Virya Devi, Kalyana Prabha, Sagragosha, and Nagabodhi. So I know how immensely dedicated and hardworking that group is. Fantastic group. Yeah. So he's very generously given some of his virya over to us this weekend. I'm sure he's just going to contribute to this rich and full experience we're already having. I don't know anything about what he's going to say, apart from the title. So I'm very much looking forward to what he will say and share with us when he tells us about the Guru's Adhisthana. Thank you.
Dear brothers and sisters, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Garubhaya. So I don't think many people know how fond I am of Vimalamati, but you all do now. So we've been having our meals in the barn, and as a number of people have mentioned, it's quite a poignant place to be eating, because the last time I was in there for any sort of function was for Bante's funeral. And I remember so clearly having to give one of the funeral orations, and probably one of the most testing things I've ever had to do. But fortunately, I didn't have to think about it much. It just sort of happened. One of the things I wanted to do was not only acknowledge something sort of transcendent about Bante, I also wanted to acknowledge the awkward bits. And I did find a little formula for doing it. I think I said something like, if I can remember, that Bante was a rather inconvenient guru. And I knew that everybody'd know what those few words meant. But actually remembering that, it also aroused for me some sadness, because quite recently I saw the resignation letter of a Dhammacharini. We've fortunately been replenished by so many wonderful new order members. But of course, some have left us over this period. And quite recently, a Dhammacharini who I knew a long time ago and had liking and respect for, resigned from the order because of what she was hearing more and more about Bante's past. Also about more recent revelations in which basically those of us from that era had really failed to deal with something. And it was too much for her. That was enough for her. And I found that very saddening. And I thought that what I wanted to contribute today was my experience of Bante, because something of that, I can't give you any more than just a glimpse and pick out some very important things from that. Because all of us exist only in our relationships with others. I was talking to Paramartha about this. You'll recognize the reference. But we don't exist independently. Our sense of ourselves is a secondary phenomenon. But primarily, we are the intersection of our relationships. It's I exist at the point of my intersection with you, and you exist at the point of your intersection with me and everybody else. That's what we are. We don't exist independently. So if you want to know somebody, if you want to get to know somebody better, you need to sort of look at them from a number of the intersecting angles at which they are to be found. If you see what I mean, a complex image. And so, yes, that ex-Dhammacharini knew Bante from a particular vector, but I know him from another vector. And I want to make sure that that is contributed to the picture that people hear of Bante. And there are many others. There's that which exists in the experience of everyone here, because whether we like it or not, we are all related to Bante. I find this whole topic of ourselves conceived as a network of relationships rather than as an independent entity, sort of inserted into relationships. In fact, I am an extraction from those relationships, not, I don't exist as it were, ontologically prior to them. I find that really fascinating. And it's especially true of somebody as extraordinarily rich as Bhante, as complex as he confessed himself to be, he even said to me, messy. He said, well, I'm rather messy. And so to know him, you've got to hear all these different angles. And reading that Dharmajarani's post, which did sort of strike me more strongly than many of the resignations I've seen more recently, because it was said so honestly and so sincerely. And I knew her. I know her, I suppose. But I myself found myself in that position. I don't mean leaving the order, but I found myself seriously questioning Bhante really from the Guardian article onwards. I began to harbour serious doubts about Bhante. I'm not going to go into it all. There are many different aspects to it. And of course, the obvious one was a major one, but there were others too. And I found myself more and more at odds with him, out of sorts with him, which was, I can say, by far the most painful experience of my life. I'd given my life to Bhante at a quite young age. I was ordained when I was 25, and I'd been in contact with the movement for 3 years before that. And I just decided that I was going to dedicate my life to the Three Jewels, sort of through him, or mediated by him, or in his understanding. That's the proper way of putting it. And I quite consciously decided I would serve him. And I did so as faithfully as I could. I don't mean unintelligently or without thinking. I'm not of that type. I did think. I was able to question him. I was very fortunate. I worked very closely with him, and I never found it difficult to raise questions with him, at least mostly, and to find satisfaction in his answers. So for me to get to that point was a shipwreck for my life. The rocks were approaching, and the ship threatened to go down, and bitterly painful. I've never experienced that before. Depression beyond depression, because it was the wreck of what my life had been to that point. 30 years of my life had been. And it was at that time that Bhante entered what I've called the first period of the entry into the valley of the shadow of death, when Bhante had that period of sleeplessness at Madhyamaloka. And it was obviously very, very tough for him. He couldn't sleep. When I read somewhere that the Stasi, the East German secret police, dispensed with their Gestapo forebears thumbscrews, because they realized you just need to keep somebody awake to get whatever you want out of them. If you keep somebody awake, their system, it's not just the brain or the mind, it's the whole system, cannot organize itself properly. And, whatever you want just spills out of them. Bhante spoke of that as his annus horribilis, his horrible year. But for me, it was the nadir of my experience. Bhante needed somebody to be with him all the time. He found it very difficult just to be on his own because of presumably the disorganization of his experience, which, in retrospect, I think he faced extremely well and with ethical integrity. But it must have been a deeply painful experience, although he says also at times it was ecstatic, the most wonderful visions and dreams and so on. But for me, we were facing the fallout from the Guardian article, then from later issues that arose, was Bhante was sequestered in his flat and had to have one of us with him all the time. And I must admit, I'd sort of had enough. Anyway, one day I was on the rota to go and sit with Bhante, which was a thing in itself, because the poor guy was trying to sleep, trying to rest. So you had to be there, but you couldn't move a muscle. You just had to sit there. And I think that he obviously knew, extremely sensitive man, he knew that things were not right between us, that there was a disruption between us. We never spoke about it. We're both English, after all. He knew there was a tension. Obviously he did. He didn't tell me that, but of course he did. And that must have made it even more difficult for him to rest. He was taking his blood pressure about every 10 minutes with a finger blood pressure thing. I just buried my mother as a very old lady. And, I'd seen her doing that. I'd have taken it off her. I couldn't do it with Bhante. And manifesting, this disorganization that comes from sleeplessness, acute sleeplessness, weeks and weeks of almost no sleep. And he's very anxious about the time. Was Nityabandhu coming back. He got me to keep on checking the time and going and having a look. And at a certain point, something broke inside me. And the thought went through my mind very, very consciously, this man is not my teacher. Yes, I confess it, that thought went through my mind. Absolutely simultaneously with that thought, I experienced a mind as vast as the sky. Absolutely simultaneously. The two things were going on together. I experienced, I can only repeat it, a mind as vast as the sky and a fussy old fella at absolutely the same time. I experienced Bhante's mind. It was never for a moment for me in doubt that vast mind I was experiencing was Bhante's mind. Of course, at the same time, it was my mind. In experiencing his mind in that way, I was experiencing my mind in that way. I have no idea how this happened, what the dynamics of it were, what Dhamma-niyama, Karma-niyama processes were at work for this terrible betrayal. Yes, the cock crow 3 times, for this terrible betrayal to be accompanied by this vast epiphany. What processes brought that about? I sometimes wonder whether the depth of the shadow was required for me to see the brilliance of the light. It's the only way I can think of it. But I experienced this huge mind, which, well, at the time, it was the vastness of it, the brilliance of it, the brightness of it, the clarity of it that really struck me. Of course, it was also vital. Warm is hardly the right word, but blissful, absolutely at the same time. Things had to they took quite a bit longer for me to sort out all these different dimensions of my experience of this extraordinary man. It took me probably another 3 or 4 years really to get to a point where I was at peace with this range of experiences of the man. My disapproval of his actions in some respects, although that vast experience means that even what I do disapprove of, I have to see from another angle. Do you know what I mean? If I do that, it's one thing. If somebody else, if Bhante does that, it's another thing. Even though it's still not a good idea, and even perhaps wrong or unskillful, it's unskillful from another dimension, another direction. I could tell you my thoughts about that. I don't know that we're ready for me to talk about these things out loud, but I think there is more to be said about all that, but we'll have to wait for another occasion. I'm sure you'd all understand me, but I don't like being misunderstood, even though it's been my fate. My Cassandra complex is with me all the time. I was right, but I'm dead. So yes, it took me several years to really sort it all out. And I think his death sort of strongly reinforced that experience of Bante's vastness. Many people who were around Adhisthana at the time of his death, in the week up to his funeral, at his funeral, will have experienced something really remarkable. Bante's consciousness, his awareness, unleashed, completely freed. And so many people have commented on this. It's not really possible to sort of reduce it to wish fulfillment or something like that. I've experienced that in a small way with other people who've died. My father, when he died, experienced the vastness of the clear light, if you like. But in Bante's case, it was boundless and enduring. One felt at that time that Bante had become whatever had unfolded then. That was who Bante really was, which I'd had a taste of so vividly in that moment of rejection of him. Of course, I've had many experiences of Bante in that sort of way over the years, going way, way back. But perhaps that occasion was when it really came most sharply into focus for me. I can't help but remember my private ordination in a small cottage in Thetford Forest, 1973. And I remember walking into the private shrine room, and I sort of had communication with Bante. I had some connection with him, some relationship with him. But walking into that room, I encountered, what did I encounter? I encountered something beyond personality. Bante had ceased to be a particular person. Well, the way I thought of it, he'd become the monk, which is the only way I could think of it at the time. He was wearing his yellow robe, but I think what I really meant was he'd become the guru. He'd become the guru principle. And he wasn't doing anything special. My mind was uniquely receptive to him, and I experienced, my belief is, him as he really is, at least to some extent. I must go back a bit. I just remembered this, but I remember I asked for our ordination by mistake or by accident. Bante had left London to spend some time down in Cornwall. He was living with Mark Dunlop in a beach chalet on the cliffs overlooking the English Channel, a huge picture window. And I'd heard that Lokamitra had gone down to see, or Jerry Goody, as he was then, had gone down to see Bante. So I thought, oh, I'll go down and see Bante. And he'd sent me a postcard of Dr. Johnson's study. It's a hint, I think, which I've never fulfilled. But anyway, I thought, well, I'll go down too, without really knowing why. I just thought, I'll go down. So I was invited down, and I went in to see him. He was sitting in a seat with his back to the wall and a picture window on his right-hand side, this big picture window with a vast ocean sky, that greyish, a moody English Channel sort of sky, and the English Channel not rough, but a little troubled as it were. And Bante sitting there, and my immediate impression was one of awe. It seemed to me at that time Bante was part of the sky and the sea. Oh, so many other experiences over the years, seminars with Bante, where suddenly he seemed to touch on something that I remember once just bursting out laughing, just because he'd sort of put things in such a way that the truth just opened up and I was precipitated into it. One of my, the gifts that I've been given has been the capacity to quite quickly grasp what Bhante was getting at. But it's not an intellectual capacity. What I find is that was able to grasp what he was getting at and to pass from what he was saying to what he meant, if you see what I mean, as an experience. And I'm sure many will have this. But that experience was very, very powerful for me. So it's so silly when people talk about the pointing out instruction and all that sort of stuff. My goodness, we've had that in spades. It's so much of it. It's just not in formalized context, which the best of it never is, from what I've been reading. It's something entirely spontaneous and natural and immediate. But Bhante has somehow, in many, many different ways, sometimes in work, I worked for him for several years as his secretary. Sometimes he'd just talk about a situation in such a way that, yes, I understood the situation, what was needed to be done, but I understood the perspective from which he was looking at it. And I shared that perspective with him. And so many ways Bhante was able to pass for me, and I'm sure for many, many others, something of his own depth without even thinking about it. It's not something that you do. It's something that happens. The direct transmission outside the scriptures, the direct pointing, all that language that Bhante understood so well is not a formal thing. Formality can provide the occasion for it if the circumstances are right. But more often than not, it's something to do with the intersection, the communication, the relationship in which these two people are engaged, in which is those two people at that moment, which precipitates them, or precipitates the one into the mind of the other. In the Tibetan tradition, they speak often of sharing the mind of the guru. Yes, emerging your mind with the guru's mind. That's what this means. It means, I presume, I'm presumptuous enough to assert, that what it means is that you are open enough to grasp the guru's mind at its greatest, at its highest, at its fullest, at its most authentic. And that is not something that happens in a formula. It's not something that happens in a system. It's something that happens in an unfolding connection. Context is important. Context makes the connection. It provides the ground for the relationship. But the context is not something to be manipulated, as it were, so that it happens. It either happens or it doesn't. And my sense of Bhante was that he was open for it all the time, not because he was thinking, oh, I better do a transmission now, but just because of who he was, because his mind at some level was as vast as the sky. Oh, I could multiply occasions where this happens, and I'd better roll on a bit. But this is what I think is meant by adhisthana. I'm not going to say this is what it technically means. I'm not altogether clear about that. I've tried to clarify what exactly it is, what it isn't. It seems to be Chönlap in Tibetan, seems to be initiation. But what I really understand it is, and especially in the context of the Ati Yoga teachings, it is this entry into the mind of the guru, where the guru is able to open up to you his own mind, which of course is mind itself. It's not his mind anymore, it's the nature of mind itself. And adhisthana at its highest is, I believe, that experience of entering into the mind of the guru, experiencing the guru's mind, experiencing it directly. I think it's different from blessing. Ashirwad is a modern Hindi word, it's Ashirwada in Sanskrit. And I distinguish between Ashirwada and Adhisthana. I don't know whether this is technically correct, but you can get a blessing from somebody, which is where they they delight you. You know, you sometimes see on people's faces, when I used to see it when Bhante came in, a look of the purest delight on people's faces, as if the sun was shining on them, and you could see the reflection of the sun in their faces. That's blessing, if you see what I mean. It doesn't sort of change you, it lifts you up. And it's a jolly good thing. Let's have more of it. We've had some blessings even tonight. I saw on faces the delight as you saw these new order members coming. They gave us a blessing, if you know what I mean. But Adhisthana, in my understanding, at least what I mean by Adhisthana, is something more than that. It's something that Ashirwad, blessing, can facilitate. Maybe is necessary for one to make that leap, but it's something far more than that. It's where you are so receptive, so open, that you are able to merge your mind, at least temporarily, with the mind of the Guru. And to me, you know, the debate about whether Bhante is this or that or the other is all set in context by that experience of a vast mind. And I'm just so sad that my sister, she's still my sister, though she's left the order, did not have that experience. Or if she'd had it, she'd lost it. That's what I've also noticed, that many people have it and then lose it. I had it and nearly lost it. It's really saddening that people just take that one angle on Bhante, one particular relationship. And once you take that way of relating, once you take that and lose the larger context, you misunderstand that as well, if you see what I mean. So I'm just very sad and that happens, because for me, it's Bhante's Adhisthana that is the basis of our order. It's what our order really is. And what our duty is as order members is to pass that on by ourselves realizing it, so that our minds are merged with Bhante's minds, and then others can merge their minds with ours, and so on, and so on. This has been reinforced for me over the last weeks, as Subhadra mentioned this afternoon. I started to look at and think about Bhante's own teachers. And so I visited Subhadra and asked him what I should be reading. I'd read a book on Patrul Rinpoche and another on Jamyang Khyentse, Chokyi Lodro, Jamyang Khyentse, as I like to think of it. So he went to his shelf and sort of pulled off a great stack of books like that, which I've now got sitting on my must-read shelf. And reading about these really remarkable people. The ones he's given me are all Tibetans, but I was very struck what he said about Mr. Chen, Yogi Chen. Even Jagdish Kashyap, who was a Theravadin, although he'd opened to the Mahayana, but clearly was a man of real spiritual depth, very unusually for a Theravadin monk in Sri Lanka at that time. He took to meditation and went off into the jungle and had his own spiritual weight. So Bhante was in contact with some remarkable men. Those 8 teachers are some of the most remarkable Buddhists of the 20th century. Jagdish Kashyapji was known as one of the Trimurti. I won't explain that. The Hindus amongst you will understand that. But the 3 great figures of Indian Buddhism, Rahul Sanskrityan and Anand Kausalyan, who were sort of before Dr. Ambedkar, but were supporting Dr. Ambedkar. people from a caste Hindu background who converted to Buddhism, much against their own background, and were forerunners of the serious study and practice of Buddhism in India. Bhante is connected to that. Then you heard Mr. Chen with Tai Su. Sorry, my pronunciation's hopeless. One of the greatest figure, really the greatest figure in 20th century China. Then, you know, what can one say about Jamyang Khyentse Rinpoche, Dudjom Rinpoche, Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche, Chotasangye Dorje? These are by far the towering figures of 20th century Tibetan Buddhism. Everybody would acknowledge that. Gelug's even. Dalai Lama regards Dilgo Khyentse as one of his chief teachers. These are very, very highly regarded people. And when you read about them, and if you're sort of open to them, well, through Bhante, I'm getting their Adhisthana. I'm entering into their minds. Watched a wonderful film on Dilgo Khyentse. Well, it's wonderful because it just shows you him, called Brilliant Moon. It's on YouTube. But the main thing is you see the man who's clearly out of time. He's in that vast blue sky, and yet he's operating within time with utmost compassion, with nothing but kindness and compassion and readiness. Through Bhante, we're in contact with people like that. Jamyang Khyentse Choki Lodro is an absolutely remarkable figure. In reading the biography, I was very struck. Some of his closest attendants were saying that they're expressing deep reverence and love for him, but saying that there were times when they found it difficult to approach him because of his majesty. And that really made something click into place for me, because there are times when I've struggled to say what I had to say to Bhante. And I always thought it was because I went to an English public school and was frightened of the prefects and the headmaster. But it wasn't that. It was because of his majesty. There was some sort of presence that he had that was as fathomless as the ocean and as high as the sky, that you had to approach with awe and trembling, as it were. I did. I always said what I wanted to say. It was always all right. But that majesty really struck me. Jamyang Khyentse Choki Lodro was also quite a wrathful figure when he had to be. I've seen Bhante in wrathful mode. Oh, I've seen him in wrathful mode. It was terrifying. Vajrapani just incarnate. When it needed to be done, for instance, with the launching the change in Croydon, I saw Bhante do it. A number of us witnessed it. We were just having a meeting with the chairs. He invited some people up from Croydon, and he was talking to us, and, well, we should be doing this, we should be doing that. Of course, you should realize that. And now we come to Croydon. It's like he opened the curtains, and you saw a well of feeling, intensity of feeling, which was, he did not want to see people bullied. He did not want to see people mistreated in our movement. And he felt it with such intensity and depth. So you get something of that, glimpse of that in Jamyang Khyentse Choki Lodro. He cared so profoundly that he was able to manifest in kindness, as it were, wrath. I've also been reading some of the stories of the Guru's own Gurus, and they are some of the giants of 19th century Buddhism. Jamyang Khyentse Choki Lodro's predecessor, Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo, is one of the greatest figures of 19th century Tibetan Buddhism, and so on. I've been reading about one of Chotrul Rinpoche's main teachers. I think Paramartha may talk about this tomorrow night. Sarah Khandro. Khandro means Dakini. She's a woman, absolutely extraordinary woman. Really takes your breath away, the life that she had to lead in order to be a Terton. And to become a teacher, a very highly revered teacher. She was one of the chief teachers of Chetal Rinpoche, and it's supposed that her incarnation is one of his daughters. But you read about these absolute spiritual giants, and in reading about them, I feel their adhisthana. I feel the blessings at the highest possible level, at the level of the nature of mind. They're able, even through the dead medium of the written page, they're able to communicate who they really were. And all of that, Bhante inherited. The Ashirwad, the adhisthana that I experienced from Bhante so graphically on that occasion of my grossest betrayal, is identical with the Ashirwad he must have experienced, the adhisthana he must have experienced from Jamyang Khyentse, Doga Khyentse, etc., in his connection with them. He spent a lot of time with Doga Khyentse. He spent quite a long time with Chetal Rinpoche, of course with Dada Rinpoche and Kachu Rinpoche, and Mr. Chen, Jagdish Kashyap. He spent a lot of time with these people, and they gave him a lot of time, which they didn't do with everybody. And we've inherited that Ashirwad, that adhisthana. It's come to us, dear brothers and sisters. And I think that's why it's so important that we have our burial mound here. It's why it's important that Urgyen House is being opened with the room that Bhante spent so long sitting in, because you can pick up even something of that. I don't know whether anybody else has felt this. And of course, I've been with Bhante, so it's different for me. I don't know what it would be like if you hadn't. But my belief is, my sense is, that if we can really honor Bhante's teaching, if we can keep it alive as faithfully as possible, and if we're going to evolve it, doing it as carefully as possible, not just reading a book and teaching it, or going to another teacher and just starting to teach it, but really digesting, discussing, and sort of molding it into what we've been given by Bhante. If we don't do that, you'll get what we're beginning to get, which is alternate orders, even within our own order. People who are following a different set of practices without a sense of lineage with Bhante. We'll get that if we don't work to integrate what we are ourselves exploring, and it's fine to explore, but before we explore, integrate and work with others to bring it into and make it part of what we are, what we've derived from Bhante. If we don't do that, we will not be passing on this very special sense of something absolutely transcendent that came to us through Bhante. And if we can do that, then these places will be themselves sources of adhisthana for others. Again, this is a quite common understanding in Buddhist traditions, in the Mahayana traditions, especially in Tibet, but in the old Indian tradition and in China as well, that going to places associated with those who had high realization is a way of accessing that realization. Not exactly through magical reason. Well, no, it's magical, but not magic in the kind of ordinary sense. It's a different kind of magic. But if we can really keep Bhante's teachings alive, if we can keep the institutions that he formed fresh, if we can keep the practices that he gave us alive, well, we will experience that. Every one of us here has a sadhana. In that sadhana, I'm pretty sure I can say this, you will, all of you, be enacting the situation in which adhisthana can be received. My practice is Manjushri. And in the Manjughosha Stuti Sadhana, you evoke Manjushri, etc. And then he directs beams of of radiant light into your heart from his heart. And the text says, and I don't quote exactly, but something like, when that light passes into you, through his transmission of knowledge, kindness, and power, your own lotus of knowledge and kindness is fully blown, so that you become Manjushri Jnana Sattva. That is Adhisthana. When you open up to your chosen Buddha or Bodhisattva, at a certain point, you will be receiving blessings from that Buddha or Bodhisattva. But they're not just blessings. If you really open up to them, they could be Adhisthana in the distinction that I'm making. They can delight you, they can please you, they can sort of make you feel stronger. That's blessing. They can reinforce your energy, your faith, and so forth. But they can give you a taste of enlightenment. They can communicate that to you. They can do that because they come to us in a tradition, a forming tradition, which comes from another tradition, or is extension of that tradition, which is informed by that vast sky. So, dear brothers and sisters, I think we're coming together this weekend with a very clear understanding of the significance of this place, Adhisthana, with its central ritual foci. And if we can open up to those places in the right spirit, we can sort of make contact with Bhante, with his mind, because his mind is undying. So I think I've run out of steam. But I think it's extremely important that we honor these places, and that we honor them not just as memories, but as ways for us to access something about Bhante which is truly transcendent. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much, Subhuti. That was just among the riches we've already had this weekend was another layer, which is really moving and delightful to hear about. So thank you. So we have had just an abundance of riches, I think, in the last 26, 27 hours. And what we're going to do now is just take an opportunity to sit, and in your own ways, you can just sift your thoughts, absorb what you want, reflect, or whatever you think you need to do in this moment, in this vector of being in this tent with these people. We're going to do that for 15 minutes, actually 10 minutes, and then Vandana Jyoti is going to lead us in the Avalokiteshvara mantra. The start of the mantra will signify the end of the evening. You're welcome to make your offerings, and then when you're ready, you can leave. So if you want to settle yourself down for 10 minutes. So just in your own time, looking at the riches you've found.